We're trying to fit 10 pounds of sugar into a 5-pound bag.
It was sink or swim, and thankfully I swam.
We take a look at everything wild, world-changing, and just plain weird that happened in the month of March. Welcome into the Future in Flight podcast, coming to you from a hangar somewhere near the flight line, where the sun and fun preps are in full swing. I've got a question for you. What if the aircraft you've been dreaming about, you know, the one with full glass avionics, composite curves, the wide cabin, honest-to-goodness speed, what if you could fly it on a sport pilot certificate, no traditional medical, and what if that same airplane could carry 4 people, run a turbine engine, or burn 4 gallons an hour at cruise? That's not a fantasy, that's MOSAIC. And today we're sitting down with TL Sport Aircraft to talk about what this rule change really means, not just for manufacturers, but for you, the student looking at flight school costs, the pilot who aged out of a medical, the aviation enthusiast who's been told the door is closed. The door, it just got a whole lot wider. We've also got Tom Lelyo, the guy who went from youth pastor to private jet broker to building an entire career pathway in aviation sales. And we close out with this month in aviation history for March. Rockets, space stations, Top Gun, and yes, an airline run by Hooters. Make sure all doors and windows are latched. We just got our clearance. Let's go. There's a feeling you get the first time you sit in a new airplane. It doesn't matter if you're 16 or 60. You look at the panel, the clean glass display, the smooth composite curves around you, and you think, this is what flying is supposed to feel like. Now imagine that aircraft can go faster, carry more, burn less fuel, cost a fraction of what you'd expect. And here's the wildest part. You might be able to fly it without a traditional medical certificate. That future, it's not decades away. It's here, and it has a name, MOSAIC. Before we talk about where we're going, let's talk about where we've been. Because to understand MOSAIC, you first have to understand the rule it's building on. Back in 2004, the FAA introduced something called the Sport Pilot and Light Sport Aircraft Rule, LSA for short. It was a big deal. For the first time, pilots could fly certain smaller aircraft under a sport pilot certificate. No traditional FAA medical required. All you needed was a valid driver's license as your health check. It opened the door for a lot of people. Pilots who were aging out of their medicals, folks who just wanted to fly for fun without climbing the whole certification ladder. Early adopters flooded in. Manufacturers flooded in too. One of them was a Czech company called TL Ultralight, now known in the US as TL Sport Aircraft. Founded in 1989, TL had serious engineering roots. By the time the American light sport market opened up, they were ready. Their first US offering was the Sting, a sleek, low-wing two-seater that turned heads on the flight line. More than 500 Stings have been built. Then came the Sirius in 2010, a high-wing design, wide as a Cessna 172, but cleaner, lighter, and unambiguously modern. Then the high-performance Stream in 2015, and more recently the Sparker, a side-by-side retract that belongs in a sci-fi movie. Over 2,000 TL aircraft are flying around the world today. But here's the thing. For all their capability, TL and every other light sport manufacturer on the planet has been flying with one hand tied behind their back.
And you had early adopters, manufacturers that started looking at the regulations early. TL Ultralight, which is us, the TL Sport Aircraft. They were an early adopter with the Sting. But we've had, for the past few decades, limitations. It was capped at 1,320 pounds. You had the gross weight limitation. You had the propeller, engine power, seat limitations.
1,320 pounds. That was the magic number. The gross weight limit for special light sport aircraft. And for 20 years, everyone, pilots, manufacturers, flight schools, had to color inside those lines. Think about what 1,320 pounds actually means when you're engineering a modern aircraft. You want to add stronger carbon fiber layering? Too heavy. Better avionics suite? Careful. 2 normal-sized adults plus full fuel? You're doing math in the parking lot. I asked Trey how that constraint felt from the manufacturing side.
We're trying to fit 10 pounds of sugar into a 5-pound bag. You have a product that is capable of so much more, but you're capped. What happens because of that is you have products that are made in the effort to conserve on weight are now not as robust as they could be.
That's not a knock on the original rule. In 2004, it made sense. Set a weight ceiling, control the performance envelope, keep things predictable while all this data on the new class of aircraft came in. And the data did come in, decades of it. And what it showed was that light sport aircraft, built to ASTM consensus standards, often equipped with ballistic parachute systems, were safe, in many ways safer than expected. So manufacturers, including TL, spent years pushing back through ASTM, the standards body that governs light sport design, to say we can build something better. Give us room to do it. Enter MOSAIC. MOSAIC stands for Modernization of Special Airworthiness Certificates. You can call it Sport Pilot 2.0, and that's exactly what it is. An expansion, a refresh, a deep breath for an industry that's been holding its breath for 20 plus years. Here's what changes.
We no longer have a 2-seat limit. Now we have up to 4 seats. There is no prescribed maximum weight. I get that. No prescribed maximum weight. You can only have so much weight install at this limit, which is now 61 knots. You don't have a maximum airspeed anymore, and you're not limited to a single engine. They will allow turbine engines to be installed in these aircraft, and that is going to be huge.
Let's break that down. No weight limit. The controlling factor is now stall speed, a performance metric tied to how the aircraft actually flies, not an arbitrary number on a scale. If your aircraft stalls at or below 61 knots clean, it qualifies. That shifts the design conversation from how do we shave weight to how do we build the best wing possible. That's a very different engineering problem and much more interesting one. 4 seats, constant speed propellers, retractable gear, no maximum airspeed, and yes, turbine engines.
For example, our Sparker and the Stream, they're capable of speeds up to 180 knots, which we were limited with before due to the retracts. Due to that 1320 limitation, it's not always practical. You typically going above your gross, and that has been a big limiting factor. Now we can have, aircraft that can carry another 200 to 300 pounds. For example, our Sirius aircraft, excellent trainer. It's very stable at slow speeds. It's like a Cessna in that, but it was because of the limitation. It wasn't practical. Imagine a flight school going a turbine for 450,000. Students are excited. Oh my gosh, this is the latest tech. It's got a turbine in it, and you can accrue the hours there at a fraction of the cost.
A turboprop trainer for $450,000 in an industry where comparable certified aircraft can run 2 to 3 times that and then some. That number hits different. One of the quiet struggles in flight training has always been the economics. Aircraft are expensive to buy, expensive to maintain, expensive to fuel. Those costs get passed on to the students, and they stack up fast. MOSAIC changes the math.
Due to that 1320 limitation, it's not always practical. You typically going above your gross, and that has been a big limiting factor. Now we can have, aircraft that can carry another 200 to 300 pounds. For example, our Sirius aircraft, excellent trainer. It's very stable at slow speeds. It's like a Cessna in that, but it was because of the limitation. It wasn't practical.
Think about what the Sirius now becomes with MOSAIC's expanded rules. TL just dropped a Rotax 916 turbo into it, 160 horsepower turbocharged. That same high-wing, docile trainer that flight schools love but couldn't fully use, it now cruises at over 150 knots true above 10,000 feet. It can climb to 18,000. And burning 4 gallons an hour at reduced power, roughly half what a traditional trainer burns, it becomes a time-building machine that doesn't drain the budget every hour.
You can pull this thing back to 60 to 70% power and hang there for time building for students and burn 4 gallons an hour. You can't beat that. And you have a useful load. You can easily put an examiner, a student, and full fuel and bags without any limitation.
750 pounds of useful load. Full fuel, 2 people, no math in the parking lot. And for a student walking up to the flight line for the first time, there's one more thing worth mentioning. The Cirrus, the Sparker, the Stream, these aren't your grandfather's Cessna 150 sitting in a T-hangar since 1974 smelling faintly of old headsets and mystery. These are new aircraft, full glass panels, composite construction, wide cabins, clean lines, the kind of plane that makes you want to talk about flying before you've even started the engine. Now, and this is important, MOSAIC is not fully finalized. Most of the specific numbers Trey walked us through, the stall speed thresholds, the exact licensing requirements, those are set. However, there are still a few regulations and implementation plans being worked out. As the FAA moves through the rulemaking process, manufacturers are tracking it closely.
You've got uncertainty, but even if you had certainty in the standards, not all companies are able to comply. There's a lot of testing and testing standards and infrastructure in the aircraft that must meet compliance. TL Sport Aircraft and the other manufacturers as a whole are actively trying to figure that out so that we can build that product that we know we have the means to do.
Translation. The serious players are already doing the work. TL is already updating their lineup. The Sirius with the 916 turbo is on their website now. The Sparker Retract is flying. The new capabilities are being demonstrated, documented, and designed for. If you want to see them in person, TL Sport Aircraft will be on the floor at Sun 'n Fun in Lakeland, Florida. They're also sponsoring the Stoll Invitational out at the Stoll Bush Camp. Go find them. Check out one of their models, sit in the cockpit, ask your questions. That's what events like Sun and Fun are for. And if you want to explore the full lineup before you go, you can find them at tlsportaircraft.com. That's tlsportaircraft.com. We'll put links in the show notes. Aviation has always been about pushing limits. The Wright brothers didn't stop at 12 seconds. Chuck Yeager didn't stop at Mach 1. Every generation finds the next wall and finds a way through it. MOSAIC is this generation's wall breaker. Not with rockets, not with billion-dollar programs, with a regulatory framework that finally says, we trust what you built. Now go fly it. For TL Sport Aircraft, after 35 years of engineering, after 2,000 aircraft in the skies, after fitting 10 pounds of performance into a 5-pound regulatory bag, it's finally time to breathe. And for you, the aircraft waiting on the other side of this rule change, they were built for you. Coming up, we take a look inside aviation sales with our friend Tom Lelyo, creator of the Ultimate Jet Guide. This episode is brought to you by TL Sport Aircraft. Whether you're chasing backcountry strips in the serious backcountry, cruising at 175 knots in the Sparker, or training the next generation of pilots, TL Sport Aircraft has an aircraft built for your mission. Jet crafted, MOSAIC ready, and backed by more than 35 years of quality production. These are the aircraft that are redefining sport aviation. Come find them at Sun and Fun Display Area LD12 or explore the full lineup at tlsportaircraft.com. That's tlsportaircraft.com. Welcome back into the Future in Flight podcast. Quick question for you. When you picture a career in aviation, what do you see? Maybe it's the left seat of a 737. Maybe it's a wrench in your hand and an engine on the stand. Maybe it's a tower cab at sunrise. All great answers, but here's one many people never see coming. What if your aviation career started with a phone call and a pitch and a commission check for a private jet? Tom Lelyo didn't grow up dreaming about jets. He spent over a decade as a youth pastor, and when that chapter closed, he went looking for something new. His boss at the time gave him some of the most honest advice he'd ever received.
I had a real good sit down with my boss at the time, and I said, I want to be making more money. How do I do that? And she was an incredible boss and an even better mentor and a friend. And she said, you know what? You got to start looking somewhere else because the future that you're looking for is not here.
So Tom did what any reasonable person does. He pulled up Indeed.com, and there, staring back at him, were exactly two promising options: lazy boy recliners or private jets. He went with the jets, obviously. Showed up to the interview, accidentally walked into the main terminal instead of the FBO. Figured out what an FBO was, and landed the job. But then, March 2020, COVID hit. The entire country shut down. The brokerage called him and said, don't come in. We really don't know when we can bring you on. 30 days, no income, no backup plan. Tom buried himself in training.
It was sink or swim, and thankfully I swam, and here we are 5-6 years later.
Here's something that surprises people when they first hear it. Private jets aren't just for tech billionaires. Tom explained that the entry-level market looks a lot more like buying a house than buying a yacht. A lot of the jets he started selling came at around $500,000, and globally, there are only about 200 to 300 private jet transactions a year, with more than 70% of those happening right here in the United States. So who's buying them? Successful business owners, medical professionals, people who've built something and need to protect their time, and somebody has to sell to those people. Tom went all in, and that first year he made 100 calls a day, finishing one call, writing his notes in under a minute, and dialing again. He hit 6 figures, then doubled it again. But here's what makes Tom different from your average jet broker. He started teaching. He noticed that every time a client called, they were asking the same questions. So he started recording answers on YouTube, not to go viral, just to build a library, a resource people could find at 3 in the morning in California when no broker's picking up the phone.
When people see you on video, they feel like they get to know you. And then when you do that consistently, they really feel like they get to know you. So I'll see people at conferences and they're like, hey, Tom, and they talk to me like we've known each other for so long.
But then something unexpected happened. The people sliding into his DMs, leaving comments, sending emails, they weren't all jet buyers. They were people who wanted to become jet brokers. People asking, how do I get into this? And Tom realized there was no answer, no certification, no program, no pathway.
The best part about being a jet broker is there's no license certification to become a jet broker. The worst part about becoming a jet broker is there's no license or certification to become a jet broker.
That's when Tom partnered with Dustin, and together they started building what is now AvSales Talent. The idea is bigger than just jets. It's about aviation sales as a whole. Parts, charter, turboprops, light sport, media. If someone's buying something in aviation, somebody has to sell it to them. Tom's mission is to give you a pathway.
I want to build an environment within aviation where people can grow and people can feel safe to make mistakes, because it's the only way we learn. I want to give people that permission. There's a playground over here that you can play in, and we'll learn together, and we'll give you a pathway to get into the aviation sales career.
Now, he does have one piece of honest advice for the young person who wants a mentor but isn't sure how to ask for one. It's not harsh. It's just true. Don't show up with empty hands. Do the work first. Watch the free videos. Learn the basics. Then come with specific questions. Not teach me everything, but here's what I'm working on. Where am I wrong? That's how you turn a stranger in the industry into a coach.
We weren't meant to struggle by ourselves. We were meant to be in community and to help one another out. And aviation is a wonderful community, because I really do believe that aviation people genuinely want to help other people.
Tom Lelyo is living proof that there are more doors into aviation than most people realize. You don't need a medical certificate. You don't need an A&P license. You need curiosity, hustle, and the willingness to hit record, even when it's messy. He got his private pilot's license, bought his own Cessna 172, and flew his son to soccer games across Florida. Not bad for a guy who started out selling the idea of stale pizza on a Friday night. If you want to explore aviation sales as a career, whether it's jets, parts, charter, or anything in between, head to avsalestalent.com. That's alphavictorsalestalent.com. Tom also has a YouTube channel under the Ultimate Jet Guide with a whole library of free resources. Don't be intimidated. There's room for you out there. You just have to find the door. Coming up this month in aviation history for the month of March. Picture this. It's March, somewhere in a snowy field in Auburn, Massachusetts. A pipe mounted on a frame, a small motor, a guy with wild ideas and zero guarantee that any of this works. The thing flies 12.5 meters. In 2.5 seconds, it goes maybe as high as your living room ceiling. And that guy, Robert Goddard, just invented the future. Welcome to This Month in Aviation History, where we take a look at everything wild, world-changing, and just plain weird that happened in the month of March. So buckle up. We got rockets, supersonic jets, space stations, fighter pilot schools, and yeah, we're going to talk about an airline run by Hooters. Let's take it back to a time when aviation was still basically a dare. March 1st, 1912, a U.S. Army captain named Albert Berry straps himself into a contraption, climbs to 1,500 feet over Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, and does something nobody in America has done before from a powered airplane. He jumps out of it. The parachute worked. Berry became the first American to make a successful parachute jump from a powered aircraft, which, for the record, is the kind of resume line that always gets you the job. Fast forward 14 years, March 16, 1926, that snowy field in Massachusetts. Robert Goddard, physicist, dreamer, guy who probably got made fun of a lot at faculty meetings, lights a match to the world's first liquid-fueled rocket. It flew for 2.5 seconds, barely cleared a fence, and yet that moment is a direct line to the Saturn V, to the International Space Station, to every rocket that has ever left this planet. Goddard didn't just launch a device, he launched an idea. And just 11 years earlier, in March of 1915, the U.S. government created NACA, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the agency that would eventually become NASA. Both of these things happen in March. Coincidence? Probably, but we'll take it. By the late 1940s, the world had just survived a war fought, in large part, in the sky, and now the race was on. March 2, 1949, a B-50 Superfortress called Lucky Lady II touches down at Carswell Air Force Base in Texas after completing something no aircraft had ever done before, a non-stop round-the-world flight, 94 hours, 1 minute, 4 aerial refuelings, 0 landings. The crew of 13 just circled the entire planet without touching down once. Let that land for a second. Pun intended. Then came March 2, 1969, Paris, France. A white dart of an airplane rolls out onto the runway and history holds its breath. The Concorde made its maiden flight, supersonic commercial travel, twice the speed of sound, London to New York in under 3.5 hours. The Concorde was the kind of airplane that made people feel like they were living in the future, because they practically were. And if Concorde was the glamour story of March 1969, here's the other one. Less glamorous, but maybe more impactful. Later that same month, the United States Navy formally established a school called the Naval Fighter Weapons School. You probably know it by a different name. Top Gun. March 1969, born out of a brutal realization that during the Vietnam War, American fighter pilots were getting outmaneuvered in dogfights. The solution? Train harder, smarter, and more aggressively than anyone else on Earth. The school became legendary. The movie made it immortal, but the mission was always dead serious, and it's still going today. March 23, 2001. This one hits a little differently. After 15 years in orbit, 86,320 trips around the Earth, and 104 visitors from 12 countries, the Russian space station Mir made its final descent into the atmosphere over the South Pacific. Mir wasn't perfect. It had fires. It had a collision. It had oxygen problems. But it was also the place where humans really learned how to live in space. Long-duration missions, international cooperation, the stuff that made the International Space Station possible. When Mir broke apart on re-entry, observers on Fiji watched it streak across the sky like a meteor shower. One of the greatest spacecraft ever built, going out the way a lot of great things go out, in a blaze of light over the ocean while the whole world watches. 15 years, 86,000 orbits, gone in minutes. Aviation and space have a way of reminding you that everything ends, and that ending doesn't erase what something meant. Okay, we've had rockets, we've had supersonic jets, we've had a space station burning up over Fiji. Now, let's talk about Hooters Air. Yeah, the restaurant chain. That Hooters. In 2003, Hooters, the wing place, launched a commercial airline. Operated by a charter company called Pace Airlines, Hooters Air ran flights out of Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to destinations like Las Vegas, Newark, and Orlando. The planes featured, we'll just call it themed branding. There were Hooters girls on the flights, actual brand ambassadors in uniform, alongside regular flight attendants. And here's the thing, it kind of worked. For a couple of years anyway. They had a loyal customer base, direct flights to leisure destinations, and the kind of name recognition that no marketing budget could buy. But by March 2006, it was over. Hooters Air ended its final routes to Orlando and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Rising fuel cost, competition from ultra-low-cost carriers, and, let's be honest, a business model that was always going to be a difficult pitch to the mainstream traveler. Hooters Air flew for about 3 years. It is, without question, one of the most unique airline brands in American aviation history, and it's absolutely going in this segment. We don't judge, we just report. One more story, and this one is just pure. March 3rd, 2005. Salina, Kansas. An aircraft called the Virgin Atlantic Global Flyer touches down after 67 hours and 2 minutes in the air. Steve Fawcett, balloonist, sailor, record breaker, had just become the first person in history to fly solo, non-stop around the entire world, alone, in a single-engine jet, non-stop, no co-pilot, no brakes, 67 hours of keeping that airplane in the air by himself. The Global Flyer's cockpit was barely big enough to lie down in. Fawcett couldn't stand up. He had to manage fuel imbalances, weather deviations, and the kind of mental fatigue that most of us will never come close to. And when he landed, he'd circled the entire globe, alone. Some flights are milestones. Some flights are statements. Fawcett's solo circumnavigation was definitely both. It said, the sky still has room for one person, one engine, and an unreasonable amount of belief in what's possible. That's been This Month in Aviation History for March. From Goddard's 2.5-second rocket to Fawcett's 67-hour solo flight. From the birth of Top Gun to the final orbit of Mir. From the Concorde's first scream into the sky to Hooters Air's last gate in Orlando. March is a month that somehow holds all of it. The brave, the brilliant, the bizarre, and the beautiful. If you want to go deeper on any of these stories, we'll have links and resources in the show notes. And if this segment made you want to fly something, anything, good, that's the whole point. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Future in Flight podcast. We covered a lot of ground up here. MOSAIC and what it means for sport aviation, no weight limit, 4 seats, turbine engines, retracts, and a design philosophy that finally asks the right questions. TL Sport Aircraft has been building toward this moment for 35 years, and Trey Murdaugh helped us understand why it matters. We got a front row seat to what Sport Pilot 2.0 actually looks like in metal and composite and glass. Then, Tom Lelyo reminded us that aviation careers don't always come with a cockpit. Sometimes they come with a cold call and a commission check, and the hustle to build something nobody handed you. If you're looking for a door into this industry, Tom and the team at avsalestalent.com are building the pathway. And we took our annual stroll through March in aviation history, from Robert Goddard's 2.5-second rocket to Steve Fawcett's 67-hour solo flight around the world. March, it turns out, is a very productive month for people who refuse to quit. A huge thank you to TL Sport Aircraft for being a part of this episode and for being such a tremendous supporter of what we're building here at the Future in Flight podcast. You can explore their full lineup at tlsportaircraft.com. And if you're heading to Sun and Fun in Lakeland, like us, make sure to stop by and check them out. If today's episode got your wheels turning, subscribe to the Future in Flight podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've got a minute, leave us a review. It's the single best thing you can do to help us reach the next generation of pilots, mechanics, controllers, and of course, aviation sales professionals. Every review helps more young people find this show. Until next time, we'll see you out there and up there.